Well, welcome everyone. I guess I don't have to introduce myself to all of you. This is our Respite Voucher Learning Collaborative that we try to hold fairly regularly. I do have to say it was incredibly re-energizing to see most of you last week at our National Lifespan Respite Conference and our Learning Symposium, and I hope you got as much out of it as I did and had as much fun as I did. It was a really amazing conference, and I think Alabama outdid themselves on the third try. It's very incredible. Thank you so much for coming today. You're really in for a treat. You're going to hear about true best practices in lifespan respite systems. So I'm just really excited to have our guests with us today. As you heard, we're recording it just for those of our colleagues who couldn't be here today. They really appreciate having the recording to listen to. Please feel free to go ahead and put your names in the chat, and don't forget to list your agency or organization and what state you're in is also very helpful, especially for our guests. You will have a chance. We hope to set aside quite a bit of time for Q&A, so you'll have a chance to introduce yourselves when we get to the Q&A session following the presentation. Though Hannah has said, this is a relatively informal group, so if you have questions as we go, feel free to raise your hand or put them in the chat, and we can stop and answer those if you like. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen because I have just a few announcements I want to make before we get started. Today, I'm going to kick us off with a few announcements, as I said, and then we'll move to our topic for today, the Lifespan Respite Services Program and the Nebraska Lifespan Respite Network. Once the presenters are done, again, we'll open up to questions, but we may pause during the presentation as well. But feel free to put your questions in the chat so you don't forget them, and we will get to them at some point. I just wanted to let you know about some upcoming ARCH events. We are in the midst of a 3-part webinar series on sustaining respite. That is the culmination of more than 5 years of convening of the Sustainability Planning Collaborative. It was a really loyal group of grantees and partners who have been meeting for, I think, maybe as many as 7 years to share their sustainability plans and what was working and what wasn't. And so this 3-part series is really designed to move beyond that small group and educate, inspire, and support sustainability planning activities by all the Lifespan Respite grantees and partners in the network. If you missed the first session in February, Talina Ford with the Oklahoma Lifespan Respite Program offered some wonderful guidance, informing and nurturing partnerships, how to participate in shared leadership and how important that is, and ways to mentor and support strong respite leaders over time. And if you didn't get a chance to listen to that live, I encourage you to go back and listen to the recording. And I'll put all these links in the chat in a minute. The next webinar in the sustainability series is going to be on the evolution of sustainability, planning, measuring, and pivoting. And it will be presented by the Lifespan Respite team in New York, who I know you're all quite familiar with. And they have done some incredible work around ongoing sustainability planning that I really think has helped strengthen their efforts. This webinar is going to be next week, coming up very soon on April 17th. I do remind you that you have to register in advance for this event because we're opening it a little wider than we normally do. Then we have a really special webinar coming up on May 8th with Rebecca Utz. She's going to be talking about her time for living and caring, which is an approach to planning respite time to maximize caregiver benefit. She's done quite a bit of research on this with, originally she had done much of her research with Dr. Dale Lund. Some of you may be familiar with his work around respite time use. And she's going to be talking about the results of her a 5-year National Institute on Aging funded study to develop an app to help family caregivers plan their respite time and make the most effective use of their respite time. She first presented on this study at our Respite Research Summit in 2020. Has done a couple of other little webinars for us here and there, but she has now completed the study, so we're going to get to hear the final results. And she's also going to share a public and free version of the app that you can use with family caregivers in your network. So it's going to be a really wonderful webinar if you're able to join us. Again, that requires advanced registration, and I'll put the link for the registration in the chat. And then again, for those of you who unfortunately couldn't join us in Huntsville, I did want to let you know that the Lifespan Respite Grantee and Partner Learning Symposium, which is essentially the grantee meeting, had some wonderful presenters. We did a panel on weathering change for positive results, and 3 of our states shared some major changes that they've gone through over the years and the strategies that they use to overcome those challenges. We also heard from Cheryl Donnell, who's an ARCH consultant that led our learning collaborative on implementing the national strategy. And she shared some of the lessons learned from that group activity that went on for about 18 months. That learning collaborative met quite frequently over an 18-month period, and we learned a lot and gathered a lot of information. And then we closed out the grantee meeting with some roundtable discussions that group states who have shared goals for building their lifespan respite systems and services. And we hopefully some of the partnerships, some of the things we learned about states with shared goals, that these folks will continue to meet and exchange information as they work collectively to implement their shared goals. And again, I'm letting you know where the link is to the information, the PowerPoint slides from that grantee meeting, the discussion guide, the agenda, participant list. And I also put up a whole bunch of pictures from the grantee meeting that I thought might be fun for you to see. Well, I'm really, as I said, especially excited today to introduce our guests, Daniel Petersen, Program Coordinator, and Hanna, I'm so sorry, is your last name Quiring?
Yep, Quiring.
I should have asked you that. I
No,
know I've asked you that before.
That's all right.
Policy Administrator with the Lifespan Program in Nebraska. They're housed in the Division of Developmental Disabilities in the Nebraska Department of Health and Human Services. And the reason I'm so excited about this program is that its history is long and sustaining. In fact, the Lifespan Respite Care program was first cited by the National Conference of State Legislatures as a promising practice way back in 2000. And the person that wrote that article and pulled that paper together was our own Wendy Fox Grage from the National Academy for State Health Policy that we work so closely with. She first recognized lifespan respite in Nebraska as a best practice and put it out there to states. In fact, I was just mentioning this to Hanna and Daniel that the state-funded Nebraska program, along with other state-initiated lifespan respite care programs in Oklahoma, Oregon, and Wisconsin, were the impetus and the models on which the federal lifespan respite care program statute was based. So this is where we have been striving to emulate these models through the Lifespan Respite Care Program grants. And in particular, the Nebraska program exemplifies a successful statewide coordinated respite system. So that's why I'm really glad to welcome them today. They're going to give us an historical look at the origins of the program, update us on the current services and structure of the program, and share some details on how their lifespan respite subsidy program is implemented. So I know it'll be of great interest to all of you. So thank you again, Daniel and Hanna, for being here and for sharing your far-reaching work. And I'll turn it over now to Hanna and Daniel.
Well, thank you, Jill. That was an amazing introduction. We appreciate it, and also we're very excited to be here to share today about not only our lifespan respite program, but also about our Nebraska Lifespan Respite Network, which works to support caregivers and the participants of our program. Again, my name is Hanna Quiring. I am an administrator with our policy team and our special healthcare needs programs. And I am joined today by Daniel. We'll let him introduce himself as well.
Daniel, the one and only. You know that is the way that I'm supposed to be introduced. Oh yeah, I am Daniel. I work with Hannah, and I'm the program coordinator for special healthcare needs programs, which includes lifespan respite.
Yes. Well, Dan will go ahead and put up our slides and we will kick off our presentation. As Jill said, if we come to a slide and there's something that you want to have more information about, please just go ahead and put it in the chat, or I think you can unmute yourself and ask the question, but we encourage those questions and we want to answer them kind of in real time so that we don't forget or lose track of those. But so, as I said, we are with the Lifespan Respite Services Program, which is overseen by the Division of Developmental Disabilities through our DHHS, but that also encompasses our Nebraska Lifespan Respite Network, which consists of our respite coordinators that support the caregivers, the participants, and the providers.
So I can start with some introductions just about what qualifies individuals for our program. It is a subsidy, but we refer to it as Lifespan Respite as a program because we want it to be all-encompassing and build on the history that we've got. I did appreciate Jill's introduction, especially because Hannah has been with the program, let's see, Hannah, 3 or 4 years?
Almost 4 years, yes.
Yeah, and Hannah's done some incredible growth work. I'm still fairly new to it, so as I always say, the tough questions go to her. That's just going to be how it is. But there is such a history to this program, 25 years, and even more in the development of the program with those stakeholders that invested their time in creating the program in the late 90s. And so we want to honor that history and the work that those individuals did to build the program. And so we hope to share as much as we can about the program. And like Hannah said, we want to share about the network too. Hannah's really grown this great respite coordinator network across our state. And it's such a good link between those individuals who need this lifespan respite service and the program itself. It can be hard to make that connection. And so for our participants to be able to access the program through coordinators, as you'll learn about, it's just a really great strength that we're proud to have. I just talked a lot, Hannah. Why don't you go for the slide?
Um, well, I think just this gives the overview of how applicants and participants are eligible for our lifespan respite program. And as it outlines there's 6 criteria that they need to meet in order to be eligible, including having a special need and being a citizen of the US or a qualified alien, residing in the state, of course, as well, and then also residing in a non-institutional setting, which can either be their parent, guardian, their own home. And they must also meet specific income and resource criteria, which is updated annually and provided to our caregivers and our network. And then in the application process, they must inform us of everyone who lives within that household, regardless of their status, their relationship status.
So, of course, we have the family caregivers. So for our program, according to our regulations, which in Nebraska is Title 464, these caregivers need to be providing care, supervision of the individual with this special need without reimbursement or payment. They need to be providing respite services, obviously. And then we require that they reside in the same home as the client or be providing care to the recipient in the recipient's home for at least 4 hours a day, Sunday through Saturday. And then caregivers may not use respite services while engaging in employment activities. And that's certainly something we've seen requested, but by separating that, it's really been a good service to the clients. So that's the caregiver requirements.
And with that, like, we wanna further expand that the purpose of the respite, of course, as we all know, is to give that caregiver a break. So we want to ensure that they're not utilizing those respite services during employment or school hours so that they can truly get that break to rest and recharge. Here is our income and resource eligibility for the program. As I said, this is updated annually, and this gives an overview of household size, family size, and monthly income limits, as well as our maximum resource limits, as you can see over there. And then we did include some areas of disregarded resources that are not countable when determining eligibility, and those include ABLE accounts, educational saving accounts, and some retirement accounts if they're not SSA retirement age.
Okay, so we're asked how much do clients here in Nebraska for the Lifespan Respite Program receive? So our base rate is $125 per month for those planned respite services, and we have an eligibility period that usually runs 12 months or a year. Sometimes it can be slightly different, just based on unique circumstances, but it is typically 1 year. Um, uh, Hannah really worked hard to also help us get $2,000 a year per participant for individuals with exceptional circumstances. And those can vary pretty widely. We have individuals who don't qualify for other programs, but are experiencing circumstances that are really taxing for them. And so when that caregiver is going through that caregiving process and they're providing that to the client, we certainly have some families who are seeing circumstances that are challenging in unique ways. And so in total, that can add up to $3,500 per eligibility period per client. There is a separate funding application that we have for those exceptional circumstances. And then, of course, people apply for the program itself.
And also with our subsidy, not to make Dan go back a slide, we'll stay here, but I just wanted to also fill in that the program has the option for the caregiver and the participant to be able to utilize flexibility with that subsidy and that exceptional circumstance. So they can utilize that money and move it around in their plan, so to speak, to meet their specific respite needs. And that may be for planned respite events that are coming up, such as camps or day programs in the summer or during school breaks. It can also be to fulfill the needs due to a caregiver's absence, maybe due to traveling, medical needs, medical procedures. And so that way they are able to really make that plan work so that it fits the needs of not only the respite recipient, but also the caregiver. And then that will lead us into the respite providers. And of course, who provides respite? Well, in Nebraska, we encourage community-based organizations, agencies, independent individual providers, and we like to provide as much information as possible to those entities through not only our website but also through connecting with our respite coordinators across the network. And all of our providers have completed background checks, and they also have to complete a provider orientation upon their initial application. And those background checks are then completed on an annual basis on a renewal. So, who can be a provider? Of course, family members, friends, neighbors. Others include camps, volunteer led organizations or groups, therapeutic horseback riding, equine therapy, faith based, or any other approved activities. Really, we want to make it as person centered as possible so that it meets the needs of the person and it also meets the needs of their caregiver in receiving those respite services.
And in Nebraska, we don't have any mountains or anything like that, but we still do have some nice open scenery for great horseback riding. So, I've talked to individuals and that horseback riding, that can be so great. I love doing that. Hannah, are you a horseback rider? Have you done a lot of horseback riding?
I have grown up around horses, yes, and we have a couple of very large, therapeutic horseback riding facilities in our state, so we're
Yeah,
very fortunate. One of
for
them
sure.
actually used to be, a grantee. It received, some grantee funds from our program for a little bit, and the name of that organization is HETRA, and they continue to support our program almost 26 years later. I did see that we had a question pop up from Rachel, who asked, "Do you have a list of what exceptional circumstance constitute?" Um, Really, Rachel, we don't have a specific list. That's an excellent question. Typically, the requests that we receive are based on the medical and or behavioral needs of that participant, the medical needs of their primary caregiver. Maybe it can also align with there are camps or programs that they're hoping to attend that are we can assist with covering the cost or tuition of those programs. So it really varies. We don't have a specific list, but we are a very small program. It's just Dan, myself, and our SSW, our eligibility worker. Her name is Jan. She is fantastic. But really, we just collaborate to review the needs of the client per that application and maybe those that were identified in the verification information provided upon initial application. So we don't have a comprehensive list, but those are, I would say, Dan, if, correct me if I'm wrong, but typically those are the situations that we see those applications come in for that exceptional circumstance.
Yeah, our regulations seem to give us a decent amount of wiggle room to make those discretionary decisions as a department or as a program, I should say. And and so yeah, we review the supporting documents that we have and make that determination.
Thank you very much.
Yes,
Yeah.
great question. Thank you.
Well, that brings us to the Nebraska Lifespan Respite Network. So we talked about the program, but we do have the network in Nebraska, as we mentioned before. And so this network is comprised of individuals that, we'll talk about here in our subsections of Nebraska in these regions. The mission of the network is to support the efforts of families and caregivers and to care for individuals at home and make sure that that care is efficient, cost effective, and compassionate. So, families receiving occasional respite services, even just occasional, are less likely to request admission of an individual to a nursing home or foster care or any other type of out of home care at public expense. And we know this to be true. We certainly see it through research and that data that comes back. Um, so these respite services reduce family and caregiver stress and enhance family and caregiver coping abilities. And I know that most everybody in the call is very aware of the value of respite. And so this network really serves to support that and again, create a great link between participants or individuals who want to become participants in the program and the program itself.
And And Jill has a question specific to how do you collect outcome data documenting benefits? Well, we also do throughout the year with our network, working together, we put together our caregiver surveys. We also do provider surveys, and then we have our employer engagement initiative, which is a project that is led by Georgia Reba through UNMC Monroe Meyer Institute, and it shows the value of caregiving specific to caregivers across the state, but also the working caregiver. And that data can be found on our respite website, which I believe Jill had shared in the chat, and that should be under our employer engagement piece. But that shows that data as well as the data that we collect from those annual surveys that are conducted by our respite coordinators in each of the 6 service areas. So, just quickly, I know Jill covered a lot of information about our history, but just to do another quick overview of that is that the Nebraska Lifespan Respite Network was developed, as well as the Lifespan Respite Services Program, through the collaboration of some wonderful people that attended a statewide conference. I believe it was possibly held in Kearney, but don't quote me on that. I know it was held in central Nebraska in August of '97, and this was the establishment of that statewide initiative to continue to develop and implement the respite program. And so DHHS committed to help form the infrastructure for this permanent coalition. And then in the spring of '98, a RFP, or a request for proposals, was issued by the department. The request for proposals was actually to bring together that initiative and promote respite, as well as development of the permanent funding, which was then approved in 1999. So yes, the respite program through Nebraska and the network have been in place since 1999, so almost 26 years. I believe it'll be September of this year is the official 26-year mark.
Pretty phenomenal.
Mhm. And I should say also that this was led by, Senator Byers and, Sharon Johnson and a few other people, and I don't have their names right in front of me, but it was a great group of people that came together to continue to implement and move forward with this initiative.
Absolutely.
Um, Family members, friends, or neighbors can be utilized as paid providers after becoming network screened. Can we elaborate on that? Yes, absolutely. So it we want the provision of respite, the break for the caregiver and for the participant to be person-centered, to be something that is a positive experience for both, of course, but also that they feel comfortable when they are taking that break from caregiving. So our background checks cover 5 separate background checks and ensure that we are providing that peace of mind to our caregivers and as well as to our participants. So they can also select which who they would like to provide that respite service, whether it be a family member, such as an aunt, an uncle, an adult sibling. We do require that siblings providing respite care are age 14 or above, and they also have to complete the background check process, and then what we term the network screening, which is the background checks, the process of going through the provider orientation and then completing a competency exam. And then friends or neighbors as well, if it's somebody that is familiar with that person, that is familiar with maybe any specialty care that they may need, then they can also become providers through our network. And with the provider piece, they can either be paid directly from the program, or they can be paid by the family caregiver, and then we can reimburse the family caregiver. So we do have a little flexibility there as well, and how those providers are receiving payment for them providing that service.
Let's see, any other questions before we move on?
Would the family members pay for the background check?
No, those background checks are completed by our network free of charge. There is no cost to the provider or to the family for those background checks to be completed. Excellent question.
Do you have a list of those background checks available on your website?
I will grab that information and put it in the chat, Kate, if that is okay.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah, of course. Thank you.
Okay. Well, we just talked about these background checks, and those background checks are performed by our respite coordinators. We've brought up the regions here in Nebraska, and we have a respite coordinator for each region. And Hannah, correct me if I'm wrong, but if you can see the green there, the Western region, we have a wonderful individual who's a respite coordinator named Sherry, as an example, and she's been with the program since the inception, correct?
Sherry Bloom has been with the Lifespan Respite Network for since 2000, so 25 years.
Yeah. So we've got a really phenomenal group of people, and that covers the state. And again, those individuals are helping to meet with individuals who would be good fits for the lifespan program or who could benefit from it in a big way. And then they help them through perhaps linking them to the application process. And then as well, they can assist them in finding a provider to relieve the caregiver through the lifespan program. And so they also take care of the background checks. And so they're just a phenomenal resource for individuals to have throughout the state. And another thing that's really beneficial about that, we have these individual providers and we have organizations that provide respite. And obviously, these organizations and individuals can be specific to a local region. And instead of having a group of us who need to maintain a knowledge of that throughout the entire state, these respite coordinators can keep a localized knowledge of different providers in the area. And that has been a big benefit to the participants in the program, just as far as knowing the local area and some of the best outlets for providing respite.
Sorry, I was trying to answer one question in the chat, and I apologize. Um, so here is just kind of an overview of the information that Dan and I already shared concerning the Nebraska Lifespan Respite Network, or the NLRN as we refer to it. But we wanted to, with the separation into those service areas and having a respite coordinator in each one of those, is provide a single point of contact so that they can continue to support caregivers. And it may not even be directly related to lifespan respite. Sometimes they receive an inquiry about our program, and through discussion and emails, they find that maybe a different program would be better suited to support the family and or the person's needs. So they do make those referrals as well, sometimes to our other special healthcare needs programs, such as our medically handicapped children's program or our disabled persons and family support program, or it could even be providing the family or the person with information about some of our waiver programs too, that may be of benefit to them and how to go forward with that application process. But we want to also recognize our respite coordinators because they do strive to increase awareness. They do a lot of community outreach. They do a lot of going to community events such as job fairs, resource fairs, attending school events, also reaching out to local colleges and connecting with students such as those in the special education or nursing fields, just to make that contact and see if they would be interested in learning more about our program to become providers, or also so that they are aware of it to share as a resource as they move their professional through their profession. But we also want to acknowledge that they increase access to the respite resources by their recruitment, training, and retention of respite providers. They are the ones that are making contact with the community-based organizations, reaching out to agencies, and also assisting them with that network screening and background check process. They will also provide training either in person, virtually, or by phone. It's completely by preference of the provider and or family, but they are a point of contact for assisting the provider and what the billing process looks like. And currently our program operates just on a paper billing document that can be submitted to us via email, fax, or snail mail. But they assist them with filling that out, answering any questions they may have about what that service looks like, and any questions they may have about billing. They also, as I said, continue to do that evaluation piece of feedback from providers, caregivers, and just the system as a whole. They do maintain advisory committees in each of those 6 areas that meet on a quarterly basis. Some of them actually meet monthly, but they continue to gain feedback and evaluate that feedback so that we can continue to build on areas that are defined as maybe we need to improve upon, or also celebrate, of course, our strengths and successes.
And it's really fun to watch our social media page and work with the respite coordinators, because there are events in each of the service areas. And some of those events are wonderful. Hannah, I'll throw that out. We had an event over in our eastern region close to Omaha. It was in Omaha, and I can't remember what Georgia said the participant count was, but it was phenomenal.
Yes, Georgia Reba she is our employer engagement respite coordinator, as I touched on earlier, but she also helps support our Eastern service area. And she recently hosted an Autism Eats event. And this is, I believe, her fourth one in a year and a half, but I believe the first attendance numbers were 16, and this one was almost 70. So we've continued to see growth and interest. It's also a great way for family members, families in the community, and even providers to come together and network, meet one another, and continue to build on a strong support system.
So in the chat, you'll see the link for this site. I just wanted to feature it really briefly because I think, as a fairly new individual coming into the program, one of our strengths is our network site. And what makes it so valuable is the very clear explanation of the program, a wonderful way for individuals to learn about the program. As well, we've got a feature that helps individuals find providers. So you sort of have a provider match feature, and it's just a great way for individuals to get assistance through the process. Um, and I think it's a big value to the program for sure.
Absolutely. And we actually just revamped our website last year. So it is all new and fresh. And we're very proud of that. It was um, just full disclosure, I'm not a super techie person, but I was like, we can just change some things around. No, I think we all know that updating and building a website is very time consuming. So it was a very amazing feat, group effort, and we were able to complete it. But yes, this website was just updated middle of 2024. So that is our new website. Very happy to share that. And please go in there, look around. And if you have any questions, it does have Daniel and I's contact information on that page. But again, we just want to touch on the respite coordination piece with the Nebraska Lifespan Respite Network, because they are a huge part of supporting the clients and the families, as well as supporting our team, our program, by connecting families with us, by assisting them and providing any information that they request, or making sure that they're connected with the source that can provide that information to them. I've already mentioned our 6 respite coordinators, but also and our employment engagement coordinator, but wanted to touch base about our Messiah Respite Project coordinator. So the Messiah Respite Project is led by Molly George, and this project developed 2.5 years ago. It was actually in the works prior to that, but they just joined our network just a few years ago. And Molly and her team provide monthly respite, a maximum of 3 hours. They're growing. It actually started out as one per quarter, and now they are up to monthly. But it's for 3 hours. They provide respite and activities based on interests and those that are in attendance, but it provides support to caregivers that are providing care for individuals with dementia. And they do have a website. I can share it in the chat as well, but just wanted to celebrate the great things that we are seeing as the Messiah Respite Project develops, and again is led by our very own Molly George. Then we do have our technical support team, which is through the University of Nebraska in Lincoln through CCFL, and they assist us with all of our website updates. They also assist with our Nebraska resource and referral system, which is that provider search function, that provider matching that Dan had touched on earlier. They assist with all of that, including the back of house, to ensure that we are providing that information in real time, so that is updated on a scheduled basis throughout the day to update the providers that are in a certain and specific location as they go through the application and renewal process.
Yeah, I can certainly, with the number of participants we have and the parties who are invested in the process of providing the service, it can be a challenge to make sure everybody's communicating up to date and very clearly. And so the systems that we've got in place technically really have proven to be valuable in providing services that are cohesive and really good quality. See here. Okay, so respite coordinators, as we've already talked about, I'll just touch on this briefly since we've gone over it. They provide this ongoing support to participants, caregivers, and providers. So not only are they matching these caregivers with our program, they're matching providers with the program, and they're helping to make the connection between caregivers and providers themselves. So through a grant, these coordinators complete at a minimum monthly contacts with all participants. And again, this is just a valuable thing for us to have the resources necessary to make contacts monthly. And I think it makes participants, caregivers especially, feel valued. And it helps them know that there's support there when they need that. They can also help with submitting billing documents, which is really great. Hannah mentioned that we've got our paper billing documents, and those have been made as simple as possible, but sometimes people do need a little assistance with that. And so they're working with our program staff to coordinate that and assist with the submission for payment.
So with our provider recruitment training and retention piece, again, that is completed by our respite coordinators, but Dan and myself also assist with that as we can, or as we um, see that there are new provider opportunities that are maybe being shared through other outlets and resources. So they work with the providers. We do offer an online provider application and the online provider orientation. We do have some people that connect with us and would prefer the low tech version. So we have maintained that where we will mail out the provider orientation and the application so that they can fill it out and return it to the program. It's also offered as a fillable PDF that can be completed and emailed to us. That includes that they also have to read through our provider standards, and they must also provide us with a copy of their driver's license, which assists us, of course, in the background check piece. As we talked about earlier, there is no cost to the provider or the participants for the background checks. We do also offer a small stipend for those background checks that are completed out of state. So, if a provider is located in a neighboring state, then we, of course, would need to provide that. Complete that background check for that provider in that specific state. So we offer a stipend to assist them with paying for that. Um, and that has assisted again with the continued provider recruitment, but also ensuring that we are having the ability to have families receive respite services from a provider that they may already know or is familiar with the care of their loved one. Um, as I stated earlier, recruitment includes resource fairs, job fairs, sharing information with our local colleges, also contacting community-based organizations. Sometimes we hear that maybe a participant is already utilizing a service such as tumbling or dance through an organization, then the respite coordinator or one of us would reach out to that organization to share the information about our program, how the billing process works, how the background checks or the network screening is completed, and then answer any questions that they have to assist them with moving forward with becoming a network screen provider and maintaining that level of care and relationship with the participant that is receiving respite services. Also, we invite a lot of providers or community members to our respite events so that they can meet families, so they can connect with the coordinators, and then they can talk to us about any questions that they may have. Currently, across the state, we typically host anywhere from 14 to 18 respite events. That number varies, but we host these in several areas across the state just to ensure that there's an opportunity for families to travel to an event that is closer to them or to other events that they may be interested in attending in other parts of the state.
Okay, and we had a great question in the chat pop up here from Denise, I believe. Do your respite providers have a minimum education requirement? And in addition, can the voucher be used to pay their wages? So we don't have a minimum education requirement for the provider. We have such a wide variety of providers and the types of things that they deliver as respite care. So we don't have a minimum education requirement. Um, as far as using the funds, the subsidy funds to pay for their wages, we just provide the funds to them, again, at 125 or the additional breakdown of the 2,000 exceptional need fund. And that gets paid to them or the caregiver directly. And those funds can be used how they best see fit. They're independent contractors, so to speak. And so we don't have involvement with the use of those funds. Hannah, is there anything else to add to that question?
No, I think you did good. As Dan said, they're not an employee of the state. They're viewed as independent contractors. So we really encourage the provider to connect with that family caregiver and that they come to an agreement for an hourly rate or a daily rate that both parties feel comfortable with. And then they also, that is typically when they review whether the payment from the program will be going directly to the provider or if the family caregiver will be paying the provider and then seeking reimbursement from the program. Um, we do encourage for those providers that are newer to the program, they of course have questions about wage and rate if they are new independent individual providers. They'll ask us for guidance on pay. We can't really provide that information to them because we don't know the specifics of the care that they'll be providing or anything surrounding that agreement. So we do encourage them to look at the average rate or refer to what our hourly rate would be for one of our other respite programs, such as that through our home and community-based services waivers.
Absolutely. Okay. Okay, this is good information in the chat being shared. Okay, so in their state, respite providers are hired directly through the agencies or nursing programs, and caregivers utilize their voucher to pay, okay, the co-shared costs. We have a shortage. Okay, I see. Exploring how the voucher funds could be used for non-agency respite providers could meet that need.
That I'm familiar just from attending other presentations with the voucher, and um, I would say with the caveat too, though, that with our program, the the participant and or their family representative can only submit billing for a provider once a month. Now, some of them may have one, two. We have some that have 3 or 4 providers. It's just dependent on their interests and their needs and that arrangement with those providers. But they can only submit one billing document per month, and it has to be after the last date of service for that month. So there are some providers that would prefer to have their payment received for the services provided on that day or on a weekly or biweekly basis. And so we do sometimes see that the family caregiver will pay them um, and maybe there's not the ability to do so in some cases. So we like to meet and try to support them in those conversations about how our program operates and how those payments are made to providers if there's any concerns or questions.
Absolutely. That is really good information to hear about how that works in Rhode Island. And I think we see value too in our state in the flexibility that we can provide in so much as our participants, our caregivers can find their own providers, and that can be an independent situation where that payment goes directly to them. So it's always really interesting, though, to learn about how other states make their programs work. So let's see here. All right, so let's see, we're growing and sustaining the program. These coordinators, along with our program and our 3-person little team, are working diligently to share information with families, community groups, and stakeholders. So we've talked about those events, and we've talked about the efforts that, in particular, our employment engagement coordinator puts in. And that's really good work because we're able to reach families and grow the program and make sure people know that it's available if they need it.
And and also host our learning virtual series, our virtual learning series, goodness.
Yeah.
But that is hosted by our network, by Georgia, our employer engagement respite coordinator. And it started as a way of connecting families with us, but it is now expanded to also encompass how to connect families with other resources or other groups across the state. And so through that, we've continued to see that it's providing that continuum of services and of providing that information to participants and interested parties of how to access those programs or access those resources. And so typically what we see, Dan actually just presented yesterday to this group on our disabled persons and family support program. So it started out as a respite based learning series, and now it has continued to grow to provide information, expand upon that. To further reach out to those that may have started needing respite but may now need additional services or are seeking other resources in their community or across the state.
Yeah, absolutely. And in my very humble opinion, I think the virtual learning series that we host are wonderful because when we have individuals come to those, they get to hear about different programs. And when they learn about different programs and what those programs can provide that might be better suited to individuals that they encounter, it means that people are getting paired up with services that really meet their needs in the best way possible.
Oh, is this me? Sorry. So with continual improvement and growth, we've kind of already touched on this, but we updated the provider application process. That was actually just finalized um, middle of last year. So in 2024, that was a project that we worked on for approximately a year and a half, maybe a little bit longer, but it was a collaboration between CCFL that supports is our tech support, and then also our respite coordinators. We would like to further update the application process for the program, but while also making sure that we maintain that low tech option, because we do continue to see that there are requests to have that option to fill out that paper application or meet with one of our coordinators and fill it out together. Also, we want to continue to improve and make accessible the providers through that provider matching, as well as providers that are available across the state. As we all know, there are places, times where there is a scarcity of providers. And so we want to continue to assist. And the ways that we're doing that is by increasing our our ability to advertise about what respite is, what our network does, and how we can support families. So we recently moved to doing a monthly advertisement in a few different publications in a few different areas, but we're also doing one in the ag news to reach our agricultural communities because we are Nebraska. Um, but also, we want to make sure to connect caregivers, not only to us, but to connect caregivers to each other so that they can continue to have support. Um, to support one another. And then we've learned from, of course, other states and other programs that sometimes you feel not only that support of reaching out to somebody and connecting with somebody that is providing the same care that you are around the clock 24 hours to a loved one, but also sometimes you feel more comfortable having maybe somebody that has that lived experience provide care for your loved one. And so that respite care volunteer kind of swapping that we're trying to intertwine into providing as much accessibility to respite as possible.
I think one of the great things that Hannah and the team and the partners have done, even previous to me coming on board, is it's lifespan. And Nebraska is actually a very diverse state, and it's wonderful that way. And so we want to make it known that lifespan respite is available across the lifespan. And, we've seen different parts of the state have concentration of perhaps particular age groups. And a part of the growth that's been really great in this program over time has been an expansion throughout the entire state of really diverse use of the program. And so it's again a testament to the work that's been done throughout the quarter century history of the program. And so it's something to be proud of for sure. And I think that for the most part wraps up kind of our general presentation. We love to talk about the program, absolutely. And we're proud of it. And we're proud of all the partners that come together to make it happen. And it again is just wonderful to see on social media and even in our work in our own documentation. It's so wonderful to see how respite can be used to help caregivers. I know that it certainly it touches my heart to see families have even just a little relief to go through that process. We have a lot of individuals who have partnered with us who they themselves are caregivers. So they participate in the program as a worker, but then they also are very familiar with the benefit of respite in their own family. So we really thank you for your time. Jill, we're very appreciative of the opportunity to present and just love having the chance to talk about this. This is our contact information. Hannah's included a lot of links in the chat. And I think at this time, correct me if I'm wrong, Jill, but we can kind of open the floor to some post-presentation questions.
Yes, absolutely. And thank you, Hannah and Daniel, for such an incredible presentation. Sad that we don't have more of our network on the call today, but we'll make sure that they listen to the recording. I don't think there's another program that matches the level of success you've had around building a statewide coordinated respite system. And certainly at the heart of that is your 6 regional structure with respite coordinators in each region. And I hope people picked up on that, that difference. There are very few of our programs, if any, that have a similar structure. And you can see how important those care coordinators are to not only working directly with family caregivers to link them to respite, but in recruiting and training respite providers and building respite capacity by supporting events within the community. So much. I'll let other people, I have a million questions myself, but let's open it up to others on the call for questions and comments.
Rachel, I lived for a while in Wisconsin. It's near and dear to my heart. It is near and dear to my heart.
Mine too.
For sure.
Caitlin, did you have a question for us?
I do. Thank you both. It's funny, I'm wearing my red today. I'm a Nebraska girl, so go Big Red. I live in Delaware now, but you guys are doing great work. And I remember, I know people that this program has impacted, and I'm appreciative for what you're doing. I'm especially curious when you talk about these respite providers, kind of like the different ones, right? Like the equine therapy and the ones that maybe people are always thinking about. Are you recruiting those providers to be respite providers and then people are going to them to use the voucher? Or are you finding people are coming to you and saying, hey, I want to use the voucher for this new idea, and you're saying that's a great idea? What is the relationship there, and how are you cultivating new providers in that way?
Excellent question. So 4 years ago, it was we used the approach of we will try to recruit providers. Let us ask this one, which was successful. I'm not saying that it wasn't, but then we started to have participants come, begin the program. They're like, oh, I use this dance studio, and I go to my inclusive dance classes Mondays and Wednesdays, and we're like, well, yeah, let us reach out to them. So yeah, the number of dance schools, gymnastic, sensory B, all of those, we have those have been brought to us by the participants that they were already utilizing them. And so then we reach out to them and we make that connection, provide the information to them about how our billing works, what our program is about. And then I would say probably 7 times out of 10, they want to move forward with being a provider because they already know the participant. We also do swimming lessons. That's a huge one right now. We do a lot of swim school, private swim lessons, swim camps. Also, the summer camps are another big one. We have some participants that maybe don't use their respite subsidy except for the months of May through August. They build it up so that they can go to those camps. So excellent question. Yeah, I would say initially it was we were going out trying to recruit, and we still do that. Our respite coordinators are amazing about going out and sharing information and connecting with senior centers, agencies, trying to provide that information so that they have it. But we are also seeing high success in the number of participants that bring that information to us when they become eligible for the program.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, I think there's so often organizations that don't realize they could plug into what we're doing in a different way, right? And so that's really exciting to hear. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think it also, Something that we have encountered is I don't want to say different, but sometimes varying definition of respite. And so maybe they were thinking that that was provided and this entity is what respite is, but then we bring forth, it's not personal care, it's not housekeeping, it's not mileage, it's just simply, providing that break for both the participant and for the caregiver. So also just making sure that they are aware of how we define respite through our program.
Now, that being said, once a Cornhusker, always a Cornhusker, but blue hens can be forgiven, I suppose. I suppose.
Awesome.
Were there any other questions? We are happy to answer them. No?
I
Well, if you
have a
think of
few.
any. Oh, Jill, I forgot. You said you had some. Okay,
I
ready.
want our network to have first crack at you, but
Yeah.
I have so many. Given how much I appreciate the value of the respite coordinators in the regional structure, I'm especially interested in the fact that Nebraska has such large rural areas that I'm sure have very limited supports. And given the direct care workforce crisis and how many calls
Mhm.
we get from caregivers saying, well, I have the resources to pay for respite, but I don't have family and I can't find anyone to provide care. Tell me how these respite coordinators work to identify respite services, providers, ways for family caregivers to get a break, especially in these rural parts of the state.
That one is near and dear to my heart, Jill. That is something that I have been working on for almost 4 years now because the rural areas, the provider deserts, so to speak, are the ones that we, you hear, I have the money, I have been approved for this amount, but then I don't have anyone. So just we're trying to improve it. I want to say that we are continuing to see that upward tick in the number of providers in those areas. But we have quarterly meetings as a network, and then the respite coordinators have quarterly meetings with themselves as well, like as a group. So with us as a program and then as a network, then they also work with their advisory committees in each of their areas. But it's continuing to just brainstorm. One of the big things that we have honed in on is being creative. If you know that your neighbor also potentially is utilizing respite, in a small town, then maybe that respite swapping of, one caregiver does Mondays and Wednesdays, or even just Monday of every week, and the neighbor caregiver does Wednesdays, and just trying to balance it that way. Also connecting with senior centers to see if there's programs available. Um, we are very fortunate here in Lincoln. We have Easter Day Rec, which provides a variety of clubs and programs for across the lifespan, and those include weekend groups. That includes just maybe a once a week 6-day course. There's a variety there, and so some people do travel. Of course, I think some people from out of Lincoln travel to our Messiah Respite Project once a month. Um, I mean, we've even heard the feedback from caregivers that just having that 1 day a month that they receive that respite service is huge overall. Just to have that, to even look forward to it, to have that break, it is really a substantial relief to them. But specific to our more rural areas is continuing to work with schools, our special educators, our paras, reaching out to see if there's nurses or CNAs that would be interested, and also connecting with agencies to see if maybe they would be interested in partnering with us. But it's ongoing, as I'm sure a lot of you know. It's an ongoing process, but continuing to connect everybody in a sense so that we can build on that infrastructure.
And again,
Daniel,
I think that I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, I was just gonna ask, I don't know if I covered everything, if Dan had anything to add. He knows that one is near and dear to my heart. Like, it's
Yeah.
one that, yeah, Nebraska,
Well,
especially western and northern Nebraska, is very, very rural, and that sometimes the nearest provider could be over, 60 to 100 miles away.
what Hannah's not telling you is that she comes from the middle of nowhere. And
I
so,
do. Okay, I do.
so
Yeah. So it
no.
means a lot to me.
Did you mention the areas on aging? I think that's
No, I
another one.
didn't. Yeah, that's great. Yeah. The AAAs,
Mhm.
um, connecting. We've built just in the past 9 months, just a really close relationship. I don't want to say we built because we had it, but with our leagues, with our leagues of human we've continued to work with them, and it may not they may call us about respite and then end up utilizing our DPFS program for personal care, housekeeping, or mileage. So it's yeah, we're just continuing to build the supports as best we can in those areas. And like I said, the ag news, we found that maybe if we put it there, we're getting some more calls from our aging agriculture farmers, ranchers, as they transition or need care in their lives.
I
Keep
was
them
actually
coming.
going to ask you about your relationship with your area agencies on aging and how you coordinate your life, especially your Lifespan Respite Services program with respite that's provided through the Family Caregiver Support Program. Do they come
So,
to you to help meet their requirement for providing respite?
um, no, no, more so on other program side. Ours is more our conversations tend to be around this person is no longer eligible for this program, but they need this support. So just partnering, continuing with the no wrong door to make those referrals to get that door open for the accessibility of what service is best going to meet their needs. And sometimes that may be that they started here and unfortunately that for some reason are no longer eligible, then they, continue to refer them. But no, I think Dan works very closely with our AAAs and our leagues across the state, especially in the last 6 months. It's really 6 to 9 months has really grown.
Why do you think it's grown, especially after all this time, just in the last
I
few months?
really I mean, it had started there was an uptick prior to Dan starting, and I'm not I actually, I don't wanna say I don't know, because previously our programs were located with, Children and Family Services in our Office of Economic Assistance. In January of 2024, we transitioned to, the Division of Developmental Disabilities, and I think with the end of our waitlist project and our continued connection of families with all resources in that continuum of care, we've just built that great system of referrals and working together.
Wonderful. Great to hear that. It also raises questions for me. I was really delighted to hear about your Messiah Respite project, which is faith-based, correct?
Yes, it's at the Messiah with Messiah Ministries. Yes.
Um, but it's partnering with the Lifespan Respite program in Nebraska, and I'm wondering how you came to develop that partnership.
That partnership developed, ironically, that partnership started with the program in 2018. Molly had begun working with Messiah, and after she attended a presentation for a similar program, I believe it's in Kansas. It may not be in Kansas, but there's a similar program that provided this information to her because she's also in the gerontology department at the University of Nebraska in Omaha. And so she had reached out. Well, then unfortunately, we all know COVID pandemic. And so she was not able to move forward with that. So Molly connected with me. I myself was fairly new to the program. I believe it was in late 2021. She reached out and said that she was very interested and wanted to provide me with the information and the foundation of what had started these discussions, and that Messiah Ministries was very much supportive of this, and they were going to allow them to use this space. It's I wish I had pictures for y'all, but it's very beautiful. It's like a cafe style, but there's also an area for activities like music, art therapy, reading, and then they have a beautiful courtyard that is enclosed, so that they can go out there and enjoy the flowers and the beautiful landscaping. But so they connected with us and they were able to obtain a grant from our program. And then with Molly's being at the University of Nebraska in Omaha, she also utilizes this as an opportunity for her students to come and volunteer or utilize it for class credits. So, and as well as others, there's members of the church that are volunteers. I believe she started out with 16 volunteers, and I think she's up to almost 50. Um, but each person that attends, each participant of the Messiah Respite Project gets one-to-one staffing. So she ensures that they have that one-to-one throughout that 3 hours of that respite activity every month.
Are you working to replicate that model across the state? Maybe one in each region?
Molly has, she works with our respite coordinators to share her insight. She's shared some of the educational and training materials that she goes through with the staff. And so, yeah, we continue to try to brainstorm how to model after that in other service areas.
Excellent. Any- Before I keep going on with my questions, are there any others from all of you? Can I ask you a few more
Yeah.
questions while I have your
Oh, keep them going.
For quite a while, you had something called the data dashboard, which was
Yeah.
also recognized by the National Academy for State Health Policy as a best practice. Is that still functioning? And
Um, we do still have it. I know there were some issues with, we had done updates and there was also a transition in staffing on our tech support on our CCFL side. So I know there was a period of time in there where it unfortunately was not being updated. We still had the data, it just wasn't being updated. So I did share a link in the chat, but we are working
right,
on ensuring that that is updated at least. Our goal is monthly, but at minimum quarterly.
wonderful. I mean,
Mhm.
I urge all of you to take a look at the data dashboard to see how they collect information across state agencies. Is that correct, if I'm remembering correctly?
There's various data, yeah, for all of the programs. We like to share information about other respite programs, as Jill said, across agencies and teams, but we also share information about the relationship to the family caregiver, the specifics to location. We kind of try to do a breakdown of what service area has what number of participants. And as you'll see, our eastern and our western service areas are fairly similar, which is a vast difference because our eastern service area is the Omaha area, and so that is a very large, very heavily populated area. But then our western area is primarily agriculture area of farming ranches. And so the numbers are very similar. So that's very interesting to see. I just pulled it up and looked, and for March, we had 34.9% of recipients by region were from Eastern, and 23 were from our Central region, which is another region that is very rural. So it's it's very interesting data, and it's always nice to kind of go through that and see where we are doing really well and celebrate those successes, but also see where maybe we can improve and how we can replicate our successes in one area to a different area as well.
It's a wonderful source of information, and I think another piece that's central and important if you're building a statewide coordinated system is to have all the information in one central location that everyone can access. So that's truly another best practice within the system. You also mentioned several times that the University of Nebraska. And I know that you have worked with them considerably over the years, whether it was for evaluation or for employer engagement. Can you talk a little bit about your ongoing relationship with the university and how important that is to the work that you do?
Absolutely. So we are very fortunate. We work with the University of Nebraska Lincoln, UNL, with their CCFL division, which is Children's Families and the Law Center for Children, Families and the Law. There we go. I forgot the first C. But so yeah, I believe, and Jill, you probably know better than me, but I believe that partnership has been ongoing for well over 10 years. Um,
So
uh,
at least.
yeah, it's also a small team. Charlie Lewis and Jesse, we work with them very closely. They also, outside of just being our technical support for our website, for the updating and populating our provider matching tool, they also are the ones that manage our social media platforms. They
Oh, I was
share
going
that
to ask you
info.
about that too, because your social
Yep.
media campaigns have been amazing. If any of you, you need to follow Nebraska Lifespan Respite Network on Facebook. I think you're on LinkedIn too, but the social media posts are fantastic.
Yes, and then they also assist with our Nebraska Caregiver Coalition, which is a partner of ours, and they assist them with their social media platform, and we're very intertwined in that support of one another, sharing events, sharing information, and at the center of all of that is CCFL that supports us through everything that they do. But they also are the ones that manage our data dashboard, and they assist us with any specific updates we make, such as the new provider application that's online and the accessibility to that.
And I know you had some wonderful evaluations come out of the university too, evaluations of the success of your program over the years that we cite frequently. So I hope
And
those are ongoing as well.
yes, yeah, absolutely. And then we also partner with the University of Nebraska Medical Center,
Yes.
UNMC, through their Monroe Meyer Institute, and that's actually on several levels. There are three of our coordinators that are respite coordinators through the Lifespan Respite Network, but then also they partner with us for our medically handicapped children's program, for our outstate specialty clinics, and then they also assist with our Nebraska family enhancement, or Dan, I've lost it. What is it? Our
You,
Nebraska Connecting Families project. I apologize.
sorry.
They also do the Family Care Enhancement Project, which is parent resource coordinators that are located across the state. We currently have 16 of those, similar to a respite coordinator, but they're in clinics and hospitals to assist families with connecting to services, whether it be as they, early screening or concerns. They are there connecting with those parents, and they have lived experience in our parents that have supported children of their own with special healthcare needs.
Yeah, we
So
were
yeah.
fortunate to have Sarah Swanson and Kim Falk at the conference last week um, with another one of their colleagues, Renee.
Renee Poland, is it
Yes,
P, right? Yes.
yeah, presenting on some recent survey data too. So they're just a wonderful asset, I know, to your program as well. And if some of you didn't get a chance to go to that breakout session at the conference, we do have their slides, so with the data that we can share. Any other questions? Oh, I did have one more question about what you're now, I'm sorry, I keep wanting to call it the subsidy program. It's gonna take me a while to call it something else. But do you, when you are reimbursing the family caregiver, this is more of a nuts and bolts kinds of question. Do you provide 1099s to the family caregivers?
If the payment is going directly to the family caregiver, no, it's non-taxable because it's being
Okay,
paid to
thank
them
you.
as a subsidy. If it's being paid to the provider, then yes, they would receive a 1099 as an independent contractor.
Okay, so many of our states have been advised by their state legal counsel
Mhm.
that they have to provide 1099s to the family caregivers, and I've never understood that rationale.
I think
But
that
most of them do that now, and I think it can be very off-putting to the family caregivers to worry about the payments being counted as income to them. Um,
right, absolutely. And I think it's also dependent on the state and the guidance that they receive from
right.
their accounting and tax professionals, but our guidance that we've received is that they are eligible for the subsidy, so it's not being counted as an income for those filing taxes and would not require the 1099. However, we do get questions and sometimes concerns from providers about that. And so we always advise them to, work with their tax
Right.
professional or with an accountant to ensure that they, when it is that time of year, that they have those questions already answered. But yes, there are some programs that the subsidy would in fact count as income, but there are also others that is excluded. So it's very, I think, dependent on what program and what the requirements are.
Right. I wish we could get a definitive answer from IRS, but we've never been able to do that. And I think even if we
Sure.
did have it, that you'd still have state legal counsel that would be too hesitant to do something differently.
Hmm.
So it's always been a constant worry to me about it, but we haven't found a workaround yet. But I know that California, for example, through the Family Caregiver Alliance, they've been doing respite vouchers for 100 years, and they've never issued 1099s to their family caregivers. And now I know that you don't do that either. So I'm sure there are other states as well. But I appreciate that input.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anyone else with any last minute questions? I think I've gotten through most of mine, but I'm sure I'll think of a million more. But fortunately, we'll continue to stay in touch, I'm sure.
Kate, did you have a question?
Oh, I'm sorry, Kate. Go ahead.
I hope this is a quick one and brief. Do you serve grandparents, relative, respite uh programs to any of that group? Like grandparents, they're raising grandchild.
Absolutely. Yeah. They just have to provide that confirmation that they are responsible for or are providing that care. So typically that's verified through the verification process by the address, the permanent address of the applicant, the participant, and the caregiver. Um, in other situations, there are respite programs through the foster care system, and so unfortunately they wouldn't qualify for our respite program, but there are respite programs that are available to them through that program specifically. But yeah, if there's aunts, sometimes we see maybe older siblings taking care of younger siblings, and absolutely that is a possibility because they would fall as long as they met those eligibility requirements of that Dan went through, and I think our third or fourth slide for being an eligible caregiver, which is being unpaid, providing that care 4 hours at minimum per day, 7 days a week. So excellent question.
Thank you.
Kate, I believe most of the lifespan respite voucher programs will serve grand families and
Mhm.
relative caregivers. And also they're also an eligible category under the Family Caregiver Support Program if the grandparent or relative is 55 or older. They can also participate through the Family Caregiver Support Program's respite services.
In terms of
We did a
marketing,
webinar with the Grand Families and Kinship Support Network last July on a couple of model programs. If you didn't see that webinar, I'd be happy to send you the link to that.
where do you go and market that to get that grandparents to?
Um, It it depends on the service area, to be honest. We do a few different, advertisements and publications for the Lincoln and Omaha area that are in, like, monthly publications that go out. We also do, like I said, the ag news, for our more rural communities, and that's statewide. But then, providing information through schools, school districts, depending, I should say, if it's a smaller area, rural area, typically they just go directly to the school, or to preschools or to the senior centers, um, AAAs. But if it's information that is for a like Lincoln, Omaha area, then they would go through the school district to provide that information and help disseminate that. Also connecting with school counselors, with therapists, with hospitals, clinics, and sharing that information, which are parent resource coordinators, which aren't directly related to our program, but they are very familiar and work closely with our respite coordinators and other aspects. So they share that information for us as well. And then promoting that information through our social media, Facebook, and sharing information on our website. We have an events calendar, so just making sure that we promote when upcoming events are coming so that families can come connect with us. Because sometimes it's just rather than making that phone call, as we all know, it's easier to just come to an event and hear about that information and engage in sharing opportunities that way.
Also, Kate, if you haven't connected with your state's Kinship Navigator program, that would be another great resource.
Thank you. Thank you.
I can let you know who that is if you don't know who it is.
I am in touch with them.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Excellent. I assumed you were. Well, we're right at the top of the hour that we were supposed to end, so I won't keep anyone any longer. If you think of questions later that you didn't have a chance to ask today, please feel free to forward them to me or to our speakers. I'm sure they'd be happy to entertain them, or if you have additional resources to share. But I want to thank you, Daniel. Thank you, Hannah. I'm going to make sure that
Thank
the
you.
recording of this is widely distributed, so that we can continue to learn more about what's happening in Nebraska and the great work that you're doing there. So thank you.
Well,
Thank you
thank
very,
you.
very much.
Yeah, we
Thank
really
you to you
appreciate
all.
the opportunity.
Very glad
Yes.
to host you. Have a wonderful afternoon, everyone. We'll see you hopefully next week at the sustainability webinar. Thank you
Bye,
all.
everybody. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.